Life with Liz, bringing you lively, witty, and insightful discussion on family life stages, choices, and challenges, as well as current issues and events. All of Liz's discussion is rooted in her life experience as a businesswoman, wife, and mother, having lived and raised her family internationally. Life with Liz. And now your host, Liz Gabert.
All right, well, hello and welcome to Life with Liz and Beyond. I am Liz Gabert, your host, and I'm so excited that you've joined me today. But I gotta say this, happy fall, y'all. As you know, I am from West Texas. And you know what else? I gotta share this with you because it's kind of a perfect segue into my guest today. Because born and raised Midland, Texas, and additionally born on the 4th of July. So I want to tell y'all that I am a patriot. I love this country. And so with that said, today's guest does as well. And he is going to share some information with us that y'all really need to hear. All righty? So let's get rocking. And I'm going to introduce Ken Quinn to Life with Liz today. How are you, Ken?
Fan-terrific. How are you?
Fan-terrific. Now, Ken is the Northeastern Regional Director of U.S. Term Limits. And term limits is something that a huge percentage of folks would agree on. There isn't much these days, right, Ken? But that is something. So with that said, I'm going to ask you to kind of start from the beginning, right? Can you share with us who you are, how it is you ended up with this organization, which folks can find at termlimits.com, by the way, yes. and how it is and why and what y'all do, and then we're going to keep going.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on today, Liz. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so term limits, in fact, we're going to get to a poll that just was released today, is probably the most popular issue in the country today across the entire political spectrum. So we're seeking to get term limits imposed on Congress, and we'll get more in the details in just a minute. I got involved with U.S. term limits about almost 4 years ago. Okay. I was very involved in 2010 politically, worked on a lot of different campaigns, and unfortunately I realized not much changed. You know, we sent a bunch of people down to Washington, D.C., expecting everything to get brighter and better. But has it? No, nothing has really changed. And I realized at that point that it's going to take a lot more than just electing people to make a difference. We actually need to change the very structure of the system in order to take the power back and bring it closer to the people. And that's what term limits will help do for the American people. And so that's why I'm excited to be working for U.S. term limits to get this done on their behalf.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so let's focus in on specifically what we're talking about relative to the term limits that y'all are working on, because we know the states, we have 50 states, and there are some level of term limits within each state, even the state of New Hampshire. Maybe not.
No, yeah.
No, maybe not.
Well, term limits is nothing new. It's been around since our founding.
Right.
Many of the early constitutions had term limits on the states. Our first constitution had term limits on members of Congress, the Articles of Confederation. Back then it was known as rotation of office.
Okay.
Back in the 90s, however, term limits was a very popular issue. The people were pushing to get term limits on Congress and their state legislatures and governors. And what happened was in the early 90s, 23 states passed laws imposing term limits on their own congressional delegations. New Hampshire was one of them. Most of those states did it by the ballot box. The people voted for it, 21. It was only, I think, New Hampshire and Utah where the legislature passed it. In fact, in New Hampshire, the Senate was a unanimous vote to put term limits on their own members of Congress. But what happened? It got challenged. It went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And in 1995, in the case against us, U.S. term limits versus Thornton, the Supreme Court ruled that this can only be accomplished with an amendment to the U.S. Constitution under the amending provision, Article 5. So all 23 state laws were overturned, And we now are working on trying to get this done through Article 5, and we'll get in a little detail about that in just a few minutes. So that's where we're at.
And so with that all said, we are talking about term limiting our U.S. not at a state level. This is not at a state level because the states can do as they please. There are term limits within the states. Varies, right? Yeah. So, but this is our U.S. representatives. So our U.S. senators. Yes, that's right, right? U.S. senators,
yes.
U.S. House members, right?
Yeah, Congress actually encompasses both the House and the Senate.
Yes,
so
I know.
So we're looking at, not everyone does.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It's a common mistake, but yeah, so we're looking at term limiting both U.S. senators and U.S. House of Representatives.
Okay.
And so how we're going about doing this under Article 5, Article 5 is the amending provision.
Okay.
And I'm not going to read it. It's one very long sentence, but it's very simple. To propose an amendment, there's only two ways. Either 2/3 of both houses of Congress need to propose the amendment or pass the amendment, and then they send it out to the states for ratification. The second process is the state legislatures have equal authority to propose amendments, but you need 2/3 of them to apply for the same subject matter. So it's limited to the subject of the application. Today, that would be 34 states. So 2/3 would be 34 states. Once we get 34 state legislatures to pass the resolution, then Congress, their role is to call the convention, which is simply sending out an invitation. States, you meet here at this city at this time on this date, and here's your subject. So that's the call. The states will send their commissioners, which are basically delegates. They'll draft the amendment, debate it, amend it, vote on it. It's one state, one vote. So New Hampshire would get just as many votes as California. They may send more commissioners than New Hampshire, but it's one state, one vote. And then once it passes, it still has the same ratification process, which requires 3/4, which is 38 states to ratify it. And then Congress has another role. They will determine whether ratification is by the state legislatures or by state conventions. And both of those have been done in our past. So it's nothing new.
Okay. So what role, if any, does the governor of each state play? And U.S. Congress, can they stop this from happening?
Oh, great question. So this is not like your typical bill that requires the signature of the governor to become law. So governors are not involved in this process, only the state legislatures. Now, obviously, we would want governors to endorse this and get behind it and help us, but their signature is not required for it to take effect. In regards to Congress, that's the beauty of the Article 5 convention that the framers gave us. The reason they put it in there was to completely bypass Congress. It was a means of being able to amend the Constitution without the consent of Congress, because they knew, even if you read the debates, they understood that what we're creating here in Philadelphia in 1787, it's going to become tyrannical. This government will not listen to the people at some point in time. Well, we're there.
Yeah.
We're there now.
Yeah.
And so they gave us this tool, this mechanism for the very hour we're in, and they can't stop it. And that's the beauty of this. We are basically doing an end game around Congress to limit their power and the time they're spending in Washington.
I kind of love this.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yes, I kind of really love this. And I think a lot of folks out there would feel the same way because.
Yes.
And oh gosh, I had a really good question just dropped out of my brain. Oh, I got a good one. So why was this not included in the Constitution? So the President of the United States is term limited. But you're right, at some point that was embedded in the Constitution, I know, and you can talk about that. But why not the U.S. Congress?
Yeah, great question. They debated it. I think they debated about 6 different days in that hot summer in Philadelphia whether or not they should do this. They looked at putting term limits on the president. They chose not to. Some were adamant, yes, we need it. Others, we don't. It's not that important. Obviously, I wish they had. Many of their, the Philadelphia Constitution of 1776 had term limits in their rotation to protect the people from oppression. That's what it says that, oppression.
Really?
And so term limits was seen as a way to protect our liberties, not allow people to gain too much power for too long. And the first Constitution, the Articles did have rotation of office in it. So unfortunately, they made the mistake. The Constitution is not a perfect document. Okay. None of the framers ever said it was perfect. In fact, James Madison said he wished they had amended it before they even adopted it at the convention. And so that's why the American people, if we don't like how our government is working, this is our time. This is the tool they gave us to fix it. And like you mentioned earlier, we have term limits on this 15 state legislatures, 36 governors. We have term limits on municipalities, school boards, CEOs of organizations. We have term limits on military generals and sergeants. Yeah. It's time we put it on members of Congress. And like we saw, 82% of Americans want this. So it's time.
I couldn't agree more, by the way. So the benefits of this, okay, so there will be folks that would say, oh, let me think about it. So we could have a 23-year-old, just throwing out a name, who ends up being elected, who knows nothing, right? So versus folks that have been in there, maybe not 50 years, but there are folks, but who know, because that experience and that knowledge is so important to help, govern, right? To help to govern the country.
Yeah, I hear that quite a bit. I think you have to be 25, however, before you get that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, Liz, right now we have over 8,000 years of experience sitting in Congress. 50% of members of Congress were previously state legislators, the average tenure being 10 years at the state level, the average tenure being 10 years at the federal level. So right now, currently, we have 8,000 years of combined institutional knowledge. How is that helping us now? What's that getting us today?
I'm speechless.
So my point being, I'd much rather have young people, newer people, not with knowledge of how to rig and fix the system, how to work the system. I want real life experience. I'm tired of governmental knowledge. We need citizen legislators. No more institutional career politicians. And this will get us closer to what the framers wanted. They wanted people to go there for a short period of time. We can have a variety of people with vast backgrounds and experience, like closer to what we are as citizens that can represent us. That's what we need.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that was kind of the original intent, is you weren't supposed to be sitting. That was not a lifetime job. Exactly. I don't think that is what it was meant to be.
It wasn't. And even when we didn't have it in the beginning, the framers, many of them were in Congress, but they didn't stay long. They went from position to position to position. They never sat in one position for too long because they inherently knew within themselves it's wrong to do.
Right.
So
what about the argument, the skeptics who would say we do have term limits, right? So we the people can vote and vote these folks out. That is constitutionally the way it works now, right? And that's how we term limit folks. We simply vote them out.
If you talk to most people, they will tell you they're tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. They typically will have two options: the person that is completely opposite of their values and their principles, and the one that they have been choosing election after election. There is such a disconnect. The American people, the approval rating of Congress has been under 20% for decades. So the approval level has been this low, and yet the re-election rate of members of Congress is over 96%. And the reason why this is because the benefits, the advantages that incumbents have is overwhelming. I can list them all day long, but it's virtually impossible for a challenger to take out a sitting incumbent. They just cannot raise the type of money, name recognition, and let's be honest, most voters are lazy. They're just going to go with what's simplest, what's easiest, what they're used to, and that's why we need term limits. We need to consistently rotate these people out of office. I don't know of any polls where the people are demanding life, people holding a position for life. If you can show me a poll where they're demanding, we want our legislators to stay in office for life, I would love to see that. We have 82% of Americans, and that poll is nationwide. It's 89% Republicans, 83% Democrats, wow. 78% independents. The people want this, and the only ones preventing us from getting it done are the members of Congress themselves for not proposing it, and many state legislators who are blocking this effort at the state level to pass our Article 5 application. That's why we need people getting involved and making some noise.
Wow. And of course, they're not going to vote themselves out, because that's essentially what you would be taught, especially these ones who have been there 20, 30,
20.
40.
You're a rookie at 20 years.
Oh my gosh. So, because so there are the, what do you call them? The lobbyists, right? Mm-hmm. And there are folks, a lot of them, who benefit quite a bit, lobbyists and bureaucrats mm-hmm. who benefit from this as well, right? And that's from whence, I think, the funding comes from, in part, for these long-time, forever politicians, right? So what happens there if you start rotating, but you know what I'm saying, moving
Absolutely.
them through a little quicker?
Yeah, we hear this quite often. Well, you're just going to make them more powerful. Yeah. It's just the opposite. Right now, the bureaucrats, the lobbyists, the special interest groups, they have the members of Congress, many of them, in their back pocket. The ones that are controlling everything, it's not the folks that have been there 10, 15 years. It's the ones that have been there decades, okay? They are controlled by those entities and those people. Lobbyists hate term limits. Think about it. If you have a member of Congress that you've been whining and dining for decades, you've been helping them achieve their financial goals with some special deals like we've seen recently, and it happens all the time, they don't want to break up that cozy relationship.
That's right.
And think about this. I was thinking about this question, and I like to compare it. Let's say you're a CEO. You've been a CEO for 30, 40 years, and you've been hiring employees. You guys all work together for many years. Now, as an employee, which would represent the lobbyists and the bureaucrats, the CEO is the member of Congress because they're the ultimate ones that make the decisions. They appoint many of these folks. They provide the money for their agencies. Okay, so the CEO represents the member of Congress. How would you feel as a long-term employee? You had a very good, tight relationship, going out with the boss after hours, playing golf, a little drinking. They're gone, and somebody new is there. How do you think about that? Now, that's a game changer. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't have that close relationship. You now have to earn that.
It. Yes.
And now it levels the playing field. That is why those lobbyists and bureaucrats hate this. They will do anything to stop this. Because think about it, it's the members of Congress, the incumbent party, that has abdicated their role and has given it to these federal agencies. Most of what we're seeing come down the pike towards us, Congress should be making these decisions, but they've given that control over to the federal bureaucrats. Term limits will help push back. Only the new ones down in Washington really push back against the bureaucracy. But again, we don't have enough of them there at the same time to really make a difference. And that's what will be a game changer once we get this done.
God, that makes so much sense. I mean, it really does. Yeah. Actually, it's pretty exciting. I mean, the whole idea of this.
It's really exciting.
It really is.
And it gives you hope. You know, we don't have to just wait. We just don't have to do our check of the ballot box and think, hope and pray things are going to change. We can actually use the Constitution as the framers intended to create the government for the people, of the people, by the people, what we want. The people want term limits on Congress. Let's get this done. Let's stop playing around. nothing good is going to come from Washington, D.C. It's got to come from the states. It's got to come from the people. That's how we change this.
Well, that's what it was originally all about. It was, this country is about, we the people, right? Federalism, exactly. And something has gone astray. If you're paying attention at all, seems to me, something doesn't feel right anymore. The people.
We the people.
We the people feel kind of powerless. And we are. It's not even kind of, we are, right?
Yes.
And it's happening more quickly, it feels like, to me. Look at the last year and a half. Yeah, holy smokes, right?
And it doesn't matter what party's in power.
No,
it makes no difference.
Right.
The problem is power. And, Ben Franklin had a great quote. I don't know it exactly, but he said, when you give people the opportunity to earn great wealth and power, they will move heaven and earth to attain it. And so what this does is help to bring the power closer to we the people. And if you are a believer in that, if you are a believer in freedom, of the government being for us and by us, this is how we do it. And I'm hoping that we can get this done in New Hampshire in the upcoming session. We need the folks in this state to put pressure, ask their candidates to sign the pledge that we have, that they'll support this.
Very good. So let's talk a little bit more about where we are today relative to, and maybe we already did that, but let's do it again. So where we are today relative to the states, because we need 2/3. Is that right?
We need
2/3.
2/3, 34.
Okay, yeah, 34. That's what right? To pass this. Not legislation.
It's a resolution. It's technically called an application, but it's passed as a resolution.
How many do we have today?
Okay, so a little bit of history on this. From our beginning, 1789, there's been over 400 applications sent to Congress on various issues. Now, the reason why a convention has never been called is because we've never had 2/3 apply for the same subject or the same amendments. Okay, so that proves it's limited.
Yes.
It also demonstrates that the states have been wanting to meet, but they've never hit that critical mass of 2/3.
Right.
We've come very close 3 times in our history, and one of the times it actually prodded Congress to propose the amendment instead. That's how we got the 17th Amendment, the direct election of senators. We came within 2 states shy of calling the convention to propose that amendment by the states, and Congress ultimately did it instead. In fact, that's how we got the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights came by Virginia being the first state to apply for a convention to propose the Bill of Rights, and it prodded James Madison in Congress that first year to get it done. And so this effort at the state level gets their attention in Congress when we get to critical mass.
Okay.
And so technically as of today,
yes.
16 states have sent in applications that contain subject matter of term limits for Congress.
Okay. 16.
16.
So almost halfway there is what we're saying. Is Texas one of them?
Yes, Texas is one of them, so kudos to you. Yep.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah, so there's a various applications, and ours is just single subject, and yet there's another one that contains the same issue. So we got to get there. Texas is there. New Hampshire's not.
It's not, and that's where live
free or die, right?
I know, right?
Live up to it.
States.
Of all states.
Seriously.
Time to put your money where your mouth is.
No joke. It's all good. Okay. All right. So Ken, let's see. We are going to direct folks. Let's talk a little bit about y'all's website. What folks, where do they find you? What can they do? And how can they help?
Yes. Thank you. They can go to termlimits.com. That's our website. We need folks, first of all, if they haven't signed our petition, it's right there on the front page, sign the petition. What that does, that gets you in contact with our organization so we can keep you up to date. When I send out email alerts or calls to action, you'll get those. We also have a state Facebook page, so it's New Hampshire term limits, and that's the place to start. We have a tab up front, up top under Get Involved. If you want to volunteer, please fill that out. We need people writing letters to the editor. One thing we're doing right now during the campaign season is we have a pledge. We're asking all candidates for state office to sign, even for ones running for Congress. We have 2 different pledges. And it simply states that if you are running for state legislature, you will co-sponsor and vote for our resolution. That is where we need some help right now heading into the election season. So the more people that get elected who have promised to support our resolution, the stronger we'll be when it comes up for a vote.
Okie dokie. Well, we have some 400 in this state.
Yeah.
So what the heck? Where are we at with that?
We have a number. I don't have it off the top of my head. I apologize. But
no, that's okay.
A good-sized number of folks that have signed the pledge, but we need a lot more.
Okay.
And we need more Democrats to sign the pledge. I don't know why it typically... This is a nonpartisan issue, so it would be nice to have more Democrat candidates and legislators signing on to this. We need to get this done. It's going to benefit both parties, and it's mostly going to benefit the people, which is what we've got to do. Actually, we got to kind of whittle down the power of the 2 parties, because it seems like all they're concerned about is just winning their power election after election. It's time we really address the problems, and I think this will go a long way to help addressing that.
Yeah, that's it's a great start, right? I mean, you know, there's something wrong with the system, as people say, right? I mean, you hear that, you know, somehow we're systemically broken, and I think that's true. To be honest, something's gone astray, but this is a piece of that broken system that we can relatively easily and constitutionally go after, right?
Exactly. And the thing is, you cannot change human nature at the ballot box. And so this really is the answer. This is a structural change that we need so that people do not turn the position that they were elected for into a lifelong money self-interest position, right? It's wrong. It's simply wrong, and we're seeing the devastating effects of that problem. And we have numerous reforms that we need. It's not going to come from this current Congress until we get term limits in place.
Yeah.
I truly believe that.
I do too, I tell you. So I guess it's a wrap. Holy smokes. You got any last words, Mr. Ken Quinn?
Wow. Get involved. We need help. It's time to put our money where our mouth is. You know, I turned off my news. I don't watch news anymore. I'm tired of the noise. I'd rather have people turning off your TV sets and getting involved, writing letters. Join us. Help us out.
Everybody can do something.
Yeah, share our petition on Facebook.
Yes.
You know, it doesn't have to be a lot of time, but it can just be something simple. If you're having an event, I was at a fair last week. We gathered over close to 800 people signing our petition at a fair. We had a stack of bumper stickers the first day. People ate those up. They were gone. People are so excited about hearing about this. They want to get involved.
That's great.
And so that's what we need.
There you go. So it is www.termlimits.com. Termlimits.com. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Liz.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming in. All right, folks, so that is it for me and us today. Thank you for joining me. You know, if you are interested in hearing a little bit more Life with Liz, I am on radio, WSMN. By the way, you can go to my Facebook page, Life with Liz NH, as in New Hampshire, website, Life with Liz NH, YouTube channel, Life with Liz NH. There is some consistency in my life, not much. All right, thank you for joining me. Y'all take care. God bless you.